Okay, so we're about to dive into this really ancient story about, believe it or not, mysterious bread just falling from the sky. But, this isn't just some old history lesson. It's really about a timeless human quest. That search we're all on for something that truly, deeply satisfies us and helps us break out of our daily struggles. I mean, have you ever had that feeling like you're just going through the exact same frustrations, fighting the same internal battles, and learning what feels like the same lessons over and over and over again? If you've been there, then you've got a pretty good idea of what the ancient Israelites were going through on their journey through the wilderness.
And what's so fascinating here is the parallel. Right after escaping slavery in Egypt, the Israelites find themselves hungry and afraid in the middle of a desert. And what do? They start complaining, doubting God, and even wishing they could go back to Egypt, the place where they were slaves. It sounds absolutely crazy, right? But then look at our side of the chart. How often do we get stuck in our own loops of worry, pride, or just this nagging discontent, always looking for comfort in things that can never truly satisfy us? The circumstances couldn't be more different, but the heart of the issue, it's remarkably similar.
And this right here, this just perfectly illustrates the core problem. See, they had been physically freed, the chains were gone, but their minds were still imprisoned. Their default setting, their go-to response, was fear and a sense of scarcity, not freedom and trust. They just couldn't imagine a future that wasn't totally defined by their past struggles.
But instead of getting angry or punishing them, God's response to all their complaining was this incredible, out-of-the-blue promise of provision. I mean, despite their lack of faith, despite them wanting to go back to the past, He promised to meet their most immediate need in a way they could never, ever have expected. He was literally going to send them food directly from heaven.
And this is what showed up. They called it manna, which, fun fact, basically means, what is it? Because they had never seen anything like it before. This wasn't the kind of epic deliverance they might have been imagining, but it was exactly what they needed, day in and day out. It was this physical, tangible reminder that God was right there with them, taking care of them.
But here's the thing, there were rules. This wasn't some free-for-all buffet. They had to gather it every single morning, and they could only think enough for that one day. And, this is key, they were forbidden from hoarding it for the future. The lesson here was so profound. This was all about daily dependence. It was basically a spiritual exercise, entrusting that the food would be there again tomorrow, forcing them to rely on God instead of their own ability to store up and control their resources.
So, the most crucial point is this. The manna was about so much more than just nutrition. God was using this daily ritual to literally reshape their hearts. Every single sunrise was another lesson in faithfulness, another chance to let go of that captive mindset and learn what it actually means to live in freedom and trust. He wasn't just filling their stomachs, He was forming their very character. But this whole incredible story of daily bread from heaven, well, it wasn't the final destination. It was really a signpost, a kind of preview pointing towards something and someone even greater. It was setting the stage for the ultimate provision. So, fast forward hundreds of years, Jesus is standing in front of another hungry crowd, and He brings up this very story. But He completely reframes it. He says, hey, you're all focused on the manna that Moses gave, but you're missing the bigger picture. My Father is the one who gives the true bread from heaven, the real deal that the manna was only ever hinting at. And then He just drops this bombshell. He declares, I am the bread of life. He is the fulfillment of that ancient promise. He is the ultimate, soul-satisfying provision that quenches the deepest hungers and thirsts of the human heart. The very longings that get us stuck in those loops of worry and discontent in the first place.
And when we connect this to the Christmas story, it just takes on this even deeper meaning. The birth of Jesus, that simple, humble scene in a manger, that was the moment this true bread of heaven was finally served. The manger itself became the table where God offered Himself to a hungry and waiting world.
And that brings it all right back to us today. Every single day, every difficult situation presents us with the temptation to complain and to long for our own version of Egypt. Those old comforts, those familiar but unhealthy patterns. But right in the middle of that temptation, Jesus extends this open invitation to look up, to stop striving so hard, and to simply receive the life and fulfillment that only He can give.
So how do we actually do this? Well, it starts by just consciously acknowledging God's provision for our daily needs, both the big stuff and the small stuff. It means actively choosing to look to Jesus for that deep fulfillment, instead of our jobs or our relationships or our possessions. It also involves filling our minds with truth from Scripture to help us break those old thought patterns. And maybe most importantly, it means trusting in His grace when we inevitably fail and go back to searching for the world's bread, because His faithfulness isn't dependent on our perfection.
So, as we wrap this up, here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Just take a moment and honestly ask yourself, what are you depending on to fill you today? Is it the fleeting, temporary manna of this world, or is it the true bread of life that satisfies forever?